You're welcome to the Policy Council. My name is Opeyemi Agbaje. Today we look again at cards and electronic payments. I speak with someone who is in a firm that is active in the process of disseminating electronic payments across the world, and for some time now in Nigeria as well. Enjoy the program. You're welcome back. It's the Policy Council, and I'm talking about electronic cards and electronic payments and all of that. And I have one of those who is probably most qualified in the country to discuss that with me. She used to be country manager for Mastercard in Nigeria, but her field, her territory, as they say, is wider now. And so she's what they call the vice president and area business head for West Africa for Mastercard. Omokehinde Ojomuyide, Omoke as I call her, and as I think most people call you. You're welcome to the Policy Council.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Tell me about Mastercard in Nigeria. When just give us the history to Mastercard's activities in Nigeria.
Okay. Mastercard cards actually started getting issued in Nigeria in 2005, 2006. But at that time, the market was run out of South Africa. Okay. In 2010, for very obvious reasons, one of which is the fact that at Mastercard, we believe that the time for Africa is now. And Nigeria is one of those countries that really cannot be ignored. Mastercard decided to refocus its business and launch out of Nigeria a hub for sub-Saharan Africa. So even though we are present in East Africa, we have an office in South Africa. We have another office that looks after South Africa emerging markets. And this ordinarily should be West Africa alone. But because of what CBN is doing, because of the cashless conversations that are starting to happen in Nigeria, it made sense to put a hub in Nigeria, in Lagos, Nigeria, that looks after West Africa, but also is a hub for sub-Saharan Africa. So we've been here since 2010 fully. Okay,
and what do? You liaise with the banks, you issue cards, you tell me, don't assume that I may understand, but maybe most of my viewers don't understand. So
we're more than just a card payment company. We're actually a technology company. And we play in three spheres. We do advisors consultancy that many people might not know yet, but so that's called Mastercard Advisors. Okay. We're in the payment space for what you all know us for, a network. Linking, it's more than just liaising with banks. It's creating a network where you can, as a Nigerian bank, issue a card that can be accepted anywhere in the world. So we're talking 210 countries. We're talking 36 million merchants everywhere in the world. We do that. But then we also play in the technology space, apart from being a franchisor, obviously. So it's a franchise space that, people, okay, this bank issues MasterCard, so they've taken our franchise. But it's a lot more than that. A lot happens behind. If we look at the world from MasterCard perspective, what do we want to do? We want to reduce cash transactions. So we're fighting a war against cash. How are we going to do that? Put out technology and best practices and standards that will make people, wherever they are, be able to move away from cash. So that's how we see the world, and that's really what we do. So if you ask me, what does Mastercard do? We look for every opportunity, every day, to make electronic payments faster, safer, better. We also look for technology to make people interested in waging this war against cash with us. So that's it, really.
Interesting way to look at it. I'm sure most people don't look. And so how successful have you been in Nigeria?
Okay.
Specifically?
So I'll answer that question two ways. It's been good. I mean, I think it was a good decision by the company to move to Nigeria in 2010. We have no intention of leaving. There's a lot of work to do here. It's been very good, but is there a lot of work to be done? Yes, because my biggest competitor is cash. Now, we don't need to be economic about this or be scientific. We can ask the man on the street. If we're going to say cash transactions versus cashless transactions, who is winning? It means that I have a lot of work to do. As Mastercard, we have a lot of work to do, like every other person that is waging war against cash. But have we done well? Yes, thank you.
And how have you penetrated the banking sector? How many banks do you work with? All those kind of
Okay, so
practical questions.
Okay, so I can talk about number of bank partners we have. There are 21 banks right now, and we have 18 already either issuing or acquiring, and the others, we have them in licensing stage. So it's good. I mean, that conversation is going on very well.
Okay, let's take a short time out. We know Mastercard, and Omoke has managed to make it sound like Mastercard is not in the business of making money. They're waging a war against cash. Fantastic. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. It's still the Policy Council, and I'm talking to the Vice President and Area Business Head for Mastercard in West Africa, based here in Nigeria, Omokehinde Ojomuyide. Now, Omoke, I enjoyed that, your perspective to what you do, waging a war against cash. But maybe it's not so clear to the market woman why you need to wage a war against cash. She probably thinks that good old cash in her pocket is safer, is better. She knows it, she trusts it.
Yeah.
So why would you wage a war against cash? What are the advantages of electronic payments over cash?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question, very valid, and will lead me into having this cashless conversation. So we'll look at this question from more than one perspective. We'll look at it from the country's perspective. The cost of cash from Mastercard's research is between 0.5% to 1.5% of a country's GDP. Now, when that research was done, Nigeria really wasn't part of that research, but let's do a short back-of-the-envelope calculation sitting here with you. So we know that CBN said before the year 2012 that it was estimated that the cost of cash to the financial sector was 192 billion.
192 billion.
That would be like $1.2 billion if we use 2012 official exchange rate. GDP for Nigeria was 262 in that same year, 2012. Yeah. So if we do a percentage, that's 0.5%. So that's just the back of the envelope calculation. In considering that, CBN was only looking at the direct
cost of cash
to the financial sector.
To the financial system, you're right.
So we didn't really calculate the direct costs to other people in the chain.
My firm actually did that, but I'll leave.
Okay, so you can put that number on the table. So
yes.
let's look at it.
It's a significantly bigger, because everybody then has a cost apart from the financial system. In every commerce firm, in every supermarket, in every shop, there's a cost to counting the cash, to transporting it, to doing all of that. There's a cost of theft. There's a cost of all of that. Yeah, so we have those figures.
Okay, so between you and I, we already see it's more than 0.5% in Nigeria.
It's probably closer to 2%.
Okay, so now let's look at the indirect cost of cash. So cash has some things that are linked to it. Cash, whether we like it or not, makes it easier for bribery to thrive. It makes corruption easier. And then let's not even talk about terrorism, which are serious social issues, even in Nigeria today. Let's not talk about kidnapping. It's very difficult to pay a kidnap ransom on a debit card, you see, because there's a trail. It's always going to be in cash. So there are indirect costs of cash that we can't possibly quantify right now. Some economies might have quantified it. But if we quantify that, we're looking at, I don't want to throw figures out there. For sure, I know 0.5% from what CBN has said. If we add all these other things, I don't know, an additional 1%, I don't know what it is. But it is expensive for the government to handle cash. And that is what government talks about.
It also helps people who pay ghost workers in ministries.
It facilitates anything, any negative thing that you're complaining about in Nigeria today, almost every, so let me not say any is too general, almost every, if you trace it back, cash facilitates it. So there is a cost to cash. That's why government is saying, let's go cashless. That's why Mastercard is saying, let's go cashless. Let's say you use the figure 2%. 2% of Nigeria's GDP is not small change. Now, if we reduce the cost of cash and moved that same money without necessarily increasing the GDP to other things, education, health, would we be a better place? Yes. So to the person on the street, cashless conversation is important to you as well. It's important to all of us. Every time you bring out that 1,000 naira note from your wallet, or you keep thousands or millions of it in your house, there is a cost to the government. There is a cost to your country. We're saying, let's talk. Let's reduce the cash that we have to deal with It's not free. Merchants
Of
believe...
course, you could be robbed and killed.
Let's not even talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, I have a fuel station, or I have a store. When I deal with cash is when I worry about people not giving me the correct amount of money, right? And it's possible for that to happen. But immediately you go electronic, and now we're starting to talk about the benefits to the consumers. Immediately you begin to go electronic, one thing happens. For sure, your money is complete because there's an audit trail. It's there right there on paper, it's there in your account, how much came into your account. And then when people come into your store, they're more likely to spend more because you know how it is. When you go out and I'm spending cash, I'm limited by how much I have in my bag. Immediately I'm using a card, I'm limited by how much I have in my account.
Which is bad for consumers.
It depends. It depends on whose perspective. I'm a merchant now. So I'm looking at it from a merchant perspective.
Okay.
And if I happen to have credit, it is dependent on...
How much credit?
So from the merchant's perspective...
And indeed from an overall economic perspective.
Certainly.
Consumption is good
certainly.
For the economy.
But then if I now look at the man on the street, which is myself, why does it make sense for me to use cash? I'm not even looking at it from a government perspective now, which I should, because it affects me. There is no government. Government is there. I am part of the government, right? And I'm not looking at it from the merchant's perspective. I'm looking at it from my perspective. It's the convenience. It is how it makes things better and how it makes things faster. That's what we should be thinking about. It is the fact that moving from cash transactions to cashless transactions actually makes my life easier. Is that I don't have to go and stand on that queue to pay that bill. Is that I can sit in my house from the convenience of my room and shop anywhere in the world. That's what life is about.
Okay, let's suspend that for a few minutes and take a short time out, and I'll be back with Omoke. She's obviously a salesperson, but we'll be right back.
Government wants our city to become a mega modern city. And so, government is providing modern markets for us to carry out our business. Now, this requires money. So, we need to pay our taxes to help government to help us. I pay my taxes. I hope you've paid yours. I pay. Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
You're welcome back, and I'm talking with Mastercard's West Africa head, and she's doing an admirable job of selling cards and all of that. But so anyway, I'm okay. So obviously, from what you've said, there's no doubt that you endorse the CBN cashless policy.
Why?
Why?
Why do I endorse what CBN is doing? And I'm fully supportive. I think CBN is having the right discussion, and I think they're having it at the right time. And it's only because they know what I'm talking about. I'm sure internally they do all these calculations and they know what the cost is. But also for fiscal planning, you need data that we don't have the way. If we continue dealing with cash, we can only guesstimate. And it doesn't help planning. It doesn't help efficient treasury control. If you do have so much money roaming around in cash and outside the financial system. So for CBN, there are a lot of reasons why they should be having this discussion. Central banks around the world have had, some haven't had yet, some are still looking to Nigeria to say what's happening in Nigeria. We want to do what's happening in Nigeria, but it is the right direction. I fully endorse it because they have to have that conversation now. If they don't, at the rate at which we're growing as a country and at the rate at which cash is growing, the system cannot continue to handle it. I get asked this question, you believe in what CBN is doing, how would you rate cashless Nigeria? How would you rate cashless Lagos? And I have an answer for you. So Mastercard advisors were looking at what they call payment evolution indicators. And so they were basically trying to check how countries do regarding match countries on the cashless base. So 33 countries are used in that study across 5 different regions. And in doing that study, they looked at certain things. They looked at trajectory. So they defined trajectory as the rate of change of cashless transactions as a percentage of total consumer transaction. They looked at share. Share was the percentage of cashless consumer transactions as a percentage of total consumer transactions. And they looked at readiness. So in readiness, they're looking at how ready is the country? What's the percentage of banked versus unbanked? What financial services are available, etc. So using those indices or criteria, they put different countries into different categories. So this is where I'll answer your question. So in the category where Nigeria is, and that category had India, that category had Saudi Arabia, that category had Kenya, and some other countries. Nigeria wasn't doing badly if we consider the things I've talked about. So, okay, one part I missed out was that it was looking at 2006 to 2011. And you know that cashless really took off after then. So, you know, that distorts it a bit. But even with the information they had, we're not doing badly at all, because we have to look at what CBN had to deal with at the time when cashless started.
Okay, let me cut you short. I like cashless. I believe it totally, because I know these things that you're talking about. But let's talk to the consumer who puts a card, who gets to a bank ATM and there are 12 people on the queue. There are 4 ATMs there, only one is working. He puts his card in, he's debited, but he doesn't get money. The network is slow or bad or gone. He gets robbed at the ATM. Somebody was killed at an ATM in VI. There are problems.
There are problems.
Then he's illiterate, he can't read the language. I like cashless, and I've spoken often in support of it, but I'm not convinced that the advocates of cashless, the CBN and the banks, in terms of service, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of even just pure customer service issues, response, dispute resolution, I'm not convinced they're doing the best they can on this issue.
Okay, so I'm going to answer, and I'm not holding court for anyone. I'm speaking really straight from the hip, from how I see things. So you mentioned infrastructure when you started talking. So let us put the Nigerian infrastructure as is in view when we have this discussion. And remember that CBN is not responsible for infrastructure, neither are the banks. So what makes it electronic transactions work? Electricity, communications. The technology is not the problem, but those two things are factors that affect any other thing in the country, cashless or not. So that is what they have to grapple with. For all those ATMs that you're talking about to work, banks power it 24/7 with inverters. Banks run their generators to make those ATMs work. That's not exactly ideal conditions that they're working in. Okay? Communications is not the best that it could be. So let's just say that data services have to improve for the quality of service that the consumer gets to improve. That is not in direct control of CBN or the banks. Now, I know that discussions are happening between CBN, NCC, banks, telcos. I know that it is starting to improve, and that is the reality. Are we where we should be yet? No. But this conversation has to be held as well. We need to talk about the infrastructure that supports cashless.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's take a final time out, and I'll conclude this with Omokehinde. We'll be right back.
Who knows abi better thing? Abi who no like better thing? All these fine things wey dey see so. Na money government dey take do am now. Abi, as in, it's like, you know, I mean, excuse me, I dey pay my tax. I dey do wetin? I dey pay my tax. Say you don't pay your own tax. Have you pay your tax? I pay oh.
Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
You're welcome back to my final segment with Omokehinde Ojomuyide of Mastercard West Africa. Okay, let me ask you, there's this talk about some involvement of Mastercard in the national ID card. What exactly are you doing there? What's the objective?
Okay, so the National ID Card Program in itself is the National ID Card Program. So it's basically for us Nigerians to be registered in a central database, and a card will be issued to us. But because it's a smart card, it has a chip on it, and the chip can do more than biometrics, government now decided that why don't we put payment on it? Because immediately we issue this card to everyone, and there's a prepaid payment functionality on the card, it means that everyone has a prepaid card account. That looks good when you're thinking of financial inclusion and the provision of financial products, right? So they decided to put 13 applications, 2 of which are biometrics. there's payment, and there are lots of other funky applications that they will begin to activate as we know more about the program. So Mastercard is involved only in the payment aspect of it. It's a huge project. We have a little part of it. The most important part is, of course, the biometrics, which is managed by NIMSI and all other Nigerian entities that are involved in it. So let me talk about the part I know, what we're doing. So we would be that card, the pilot of it. So what Mastercard has been given is the pilot just to start. Someone has to start, right? 13 million cards issued to 13 million Nigerians that will have biometric primarily, but it will also have payment on the card activated, prepaid cards. And it's going to be issued by, hopefully by the time the project is live, all Nigerian banks. Not all of them are on board right now, but they're going through the stages. Why are we excited about it? Remember that I said that our whole aim in life is to wage war against cash. If you want to wage war against cash, you have to be involved in financial inclusion. We don't have to be central bank to be interested in financial inclusion. So we are interested in financial inclusion. And this project is the largest that I'm aware of in Africa. That will be, because we're talking about almost like 100 million people.
I saw someone discuss this on CNN.
It got...
Discussing the Nigerian Mastercard.
Since the announcement, we have received such interest from the world. It is unbelievable because it makes so much sense, right? You are going to be issuing a card anyway. Why don't you give the Nigerians, especially the unbanked? So it's not really us. We're already in the financial system, but the people that are probably scared to go to banks to open accounts because they're intimidated or maybe they think it's too expensive, and they have an instrument in their hand that you can, even if they're illiterate, send information to them. Did I say information? No, I meant money to them, and they can use that card to take the money out, etc. But it's more than that. It's also because government is the largest employer. Government is the largest buyer. Government is largest anything. So if we're talking about cashless and stuff like that, I don't see any reason why pension cannot be paid on that card. But then that's just me and Mastercard. But we need to look at it from perspectives of other countries in the world. I have to say this. Last night I was on the website of, I think it's the UK Government Procurement Service. And they were talking about, they started this program, I believe, in 2009 or 2010, when they started looking at government purchases and looking at how they could reduce it. So they came up with some tools, and one of the tools was a government procurement card. So they said, if you're making frequent, high volume, and low value transactions, think of using a procurement card. So they have 6 suppliers. Out of the 6 suppliers, 3 issue Mastercard. Thank you. But I was looking, but more importantly like that, I was just joking there, but it's true, 3 people do use Mastercard. I was looking at one county, I think it was the West Sussex County, that said, because of the cards that they're using, it happens to be a Mastercard, by the way, they have saved 30% of their costs in administering invoices because they've gone cashless. That's the kind of thing we're thinking about. South Africa, SASSA, and that will be the last thing I say unless you ask me any questions there. SASSA pays out benefits to, I don't know, right now I think they have 22 million beneficiaries registered now. Mastercard has issued 10 million cards in South Africa for the SASSA card. Why? Because they realized that they had fraud. Everywhere where there's social benefits, there's fraud. Anywhere in the world, mention it. You can only mitigate it. Okay? Then they had inefficient cost, stuff like that. So they decided, you know what, let's go electronic and let's do biometric confirmation so that I know, the government knows that I am the one collecting the benefit. So they collected people's information, issued them with a debit card every month. Instead of the long queues, money is paid directly into their account. Before my money is paid, I have to go and show proof of life. I just go and give my biometric information in different places around South Africa so they know, oh, Omoke is alive. At the end of this month, credit Omoke's account. I don't need to talk to anybody, no queues. I get my money, I go and spend it, ATMs, POSs. Guess what happened? At first, when people got that card and started using it, people first went straight to ATM. So ATM versus POS transactions, high. Last month, it's a 50-50 split. People that were not, at least 10 million people that were not in the financial system previously, they're not all educated. Got a card, it was well advertised, it was well managed, started acting like you and I that have been in the financial system for a while. That is the power of electronic payments. That's what we're hoping will happen with the national
And
ID
that's
card.
the future for Nigeria.
Yes,
Hopefully.
that's what we're hoping the future will be.
Fantastic. I've enjoyed listening to her. She's on the program. Thank you very much, Omake.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll be right back. That was a fantastic discussion. I'm sure you were as fascinated as I was with the ideas and the perspectives that Omokehinde shared with us. I totally endorse the future of electronic payments. The cost of cash, as she mentioned, based on our own independent research, is phenomenal. And like she mentioned, it facilitates corruption and much of these other abuses, money laundering, crime, all of them thrive on cash. We must make cashless work, but the system must provide the infrastructure to make it work and the customer service to make Nigerians enjoy the experience. Thank you very much for watching. See you next.